Good afternoon. Let's look at question number 51. It asks us to graph the function of f of x equals 4.2x squared plus 6x minus 1. And I just wrote down y because we know that f of x is the same as saying y. So the first thing we need to figure out is what our axis of symmetry is. Remember, that's a negative b over 2a. So we're taking negative 6 over 2 times 4.2. So here we're getting a negative 6 over 8.4. So I'm going to get my calculator, and 6 divided by 8.4, it's negative 5 over 7. Which is, and I'm actually going to keep it as a fraction, I think, but is approximately equal to 0.714 and stuff. So we're going to keep the negative 5 over 7 because we need to plug it into our table to figure out our y values. So if we have a negative 5 over 7, we plug that back into our original equation. We'll take y equals 4.2 times a negative 5 over 7 squared plus 6 times a negative 5 over 7 minus 1. So if I plug that into my calculator, I'm going to take 4.2 times a negative 5 divided by 7 squared plus 6 times a negative 5 divided by 7 minus 1. And that gives us a negative 22 over 7. Put in here, and that's our vertex point. So now let's think about a couple other points, and I'm actually going to pick ones that are maybe a little bit easier and not going to necessarily give us such interesting fractions. So let's think about a negative 5 over 7. Now I talked about the fact that I was subtracting 1 and subtracting 2. Well, what's a number that's a little bit smaller than a negative 5 over 7 or a little bit greater than a negative 5 over 7? So I want to have something that is symmetric with it. I'm having symmetry. If I added 2 over 7 to that number, if I subtracted 2 over 7, that would give me a negative 1. So if I subtract 2 over 7, that's going to give me a negative 1. Because I'd have a negative 7 over 7. And then if I added 2 over 7, that would give me a negative 3 over 7. So that gave me a little bit easier of a value there. So here I'm going to go from a negative 1 to a negative 2. And then this negative 3 over 7, I'm going to subtract 1 from it, so that's going to give me a negative 1 and 3/7. I still picked things that were evenly separated, but got me into some nicer numbers that I can calculate without so much work. So I subtracted 2 over 7 to get to a negative 1. I added 2 over 7 to get a negative 3/7. And then I subtracted 1 to get a negative 2. And I guess I'd be adding 1 to get that number. Let's fix that. We're going to add 1 to 3 over 7. That would be adding 7 over 7. So that's going to give us 4/7. Okay. So let's plug this negative 1 into our handy-dandy function. We have 4.2 times 1 squared plus 6x minus 1. Well, that's going to give me 1 times 4.2, so I have 4.2. Oh, and this x really should have been a 1, so let's fix that. Plus 6 minus 1. So if I use my calculator, 4.2 plus 6 minus 1, it's going to give us 46 over 5. So we know that the value here is 46 over 5. And the value here is 46 over 5. Let's look what our next number is. If I was plugging in a negative 2 into my function, well, that was a negative 1, wasn't it? Let's change that to negative. Change that to negative. That's actually a minus 6, which will give us a new number entirely, because we'd have 4.2 minus 6 minus 1, which gives us a negative 14 over 5. So let's fix that. Negative 14 over 5. This will give us a negative 14 over 5 as well. For that. Okay. Let's look at a negative 2. So y equals 4.2 and negative 2 squared plus 6 minus 2 minus 1. Click that through our calculator. 4.2 and negative 2 squared minus 12 minus 1. That gives us 19 over 5. How is it 19? Yes. That seems unlikely. But if you look at this, this is small, and that's getting a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger. I think those numbers are reasonable. Let's graph them. So right now, we're starting out with a negative x, negative y, but then we're moving up to mostly negative x's, but then the y values are getting a little bit more positive. So let's do this. And we're going to have a little bit of both. So if we look at that, that's 1, 2, 3. So if I have a negative 5 over 7 and a negative 22 over 7, 22 over 7 is about 3.4. So we're going to go down 1, 2, 3, a little bit. So that's right about there. And then if I do a negative 1, it was at a negative 14 over 5. This is negative 2.8. So that's almost 3. So I'm going to put a value there. And a negative 3/7, so that's probably something there. Those look symmetric. And then if I have a negative 2, it was up at 19 over 5. 19 over 5 is 3.8. So 1, 2, 3, 4. If I go to a negative 2, up to a 3.8 there. And the positive number is 4 over 7, so that's probably something like there. So let's look at our graph. Let's go out that way. And this one is headed out that way. Should be a little bit more curvy at the bottom, but it is generally headed out in a curved parabola-like shape. So that is question number 51. Have a great day. Bye-bye.